And happy Friday. Welcome to Hannity. Tonight, the liberal mainstream media is having a field day with a story that New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's now former aide was involved in having lanes closed on the George Washington Bridge back in September, allegedly for some sort of political revenge. But the left-wing journalists are also carefully glossing over the fact that Governor Christie's response shows what it means to be a real decisive leader. Now, within 24 hours of learning that someone on his team acted inappropriately, Governor Christie had the moral coverage to let heads roll. That's a stark contrast to how President Obama addresses scandals within his administration. Now, when it comes to the botched Obamacare rollout, the IRS enemies list, Fast and Furious, the NSA spying scandal, President Obama, his team, nobody's been fired. No one is held accountable. Now, we put together a few examples to help prove our little point here. Take a look.
I come out here today to apologize to the people of New Jersey. I am embarrassed and humiliated by the conduct of some of the people on my team.
We were anxious to get the website up and running and functional, which we clearly have failed to do.
I think Kathleen Sebelius, under tremendously difficult circumstances over the last 4.5 years, has done a great job.
This morning, I've terminated the employment of Bridget Kelly, effective immediately. I terminated her employment because she lied to me.
What happened initially was that it was a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired in Cairo as a consequence of the video.
Susan exemplifies the finest tradition of American diplomacy and leadership, so thank you, Susan, for being willing to take on this next assignment.
I am responsible for what happened. We fell short of the expectations that we've created over the last 4 years for the type of excellence in government that they should expect from this office.
The president doesn't know about everything that is going on in every agency of government.
You cannot have someone at the top of your political operation who you do not have confidence in. As a result, I've instructed Bill Stepien to not place his name in nomination for state party chairman.
I have complete confidence in Attorney General Holder in how he handles his office.
But to be clear, you're not stepping down now.
No, I have no intention of doing so now.
All I can do is apologize for the conduct of people who worked for me. I'm the governor, and the things that happen on my watch are my responsibility, both good and bad.
What a contrast, pretty revealing. Also tonight, we have bad economic news to report to you. In the month of December, according to the Labor Department, only 74,000 jobs were added. And while Democrats are trying to spin these figures, because the unemployment, in fact, did tick down to 6.7%, what they fail to mention, and the media fails to mention to you, is that the low numbers are because more people have stopped looking for a job. In this case, 347,000 Americans now, and 92 million total have left the workplace. Joining me now with reaction to this, much more, Republican New York Congressman Michael Grimm, Democratic California Congressman John Garamendi is with us. Guys, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you, Sean.
Good to see you, Sean.
All right, Mr. Garamendi, you're a Democrat. Sure. How do you feel Chris Christie handled this issue yesterday? Laid everything on the line, did it in a short period of time, and basically left no wiggle room for himself if, in fact, he's telling the truth, or if he's not telling the truth, he's in trouble.
Well, that's certainly true if he's not telling the truth, but he handled it as well as you could under the circumstances that he was faced with. And we'll see how all this plays out. There are ongoing investigations. We'll see how it plays out. But yesterday, we had a pretty good press conference.
Now, I point out the difference and the distinction here, and it's pretty glaring. Yeah. Let me ask you, have you ever called for Kathleen Sebelius, Lois Lerner, Clapper, Holder, anybody involved in Benghazi? Did you ever ask for any of them to resign? Should any of them have been fired in your view? Should Kathleen Sebelius have been fired for the rollout, the disaster of the Obamacare website?
Well, I think no. I think she has a lot of work to do. She's got in best position to get that thing done, and a lot of progress has been made since the big stumble that took place right at the outset. And it is up and it is running now, and it took 2.5 months. But they also had a very, very short period of time to get it done.
Wait a minute. Short period of time, nothing. She had 3.5 years, hundreds of millions of dollars in a country that has Apple and Silicon Valley and Microsoft. And this was the single hundreds of millions of dollars, 3.5 years. You don't think that person should be fired?
Well, let's take a closer look at that. Actually, she had far less time because the governors of every state had to stay whether they were going to build their own.
But they had time to prepare the website. They had time to build it. They had time to at least begin the foundations of it.
Yes, that's true, but it didn't happen in the last 3 months since the failure at the outset. They have been able to put it together, and it is working.
Question.
In those states where the governors did take responsibilities, New York included, and California, it actually has gone quite well.
Our government gave guns through Fast and Furious to drug runners, kidnappers, gangs, and murderers. Brian Terry died, as well as a lot of other people, because our government gave them weapons. You think somebody should have been fired for that?
Well, this actually started in the George W. Bush administration.
Not the same program. It's not the same program.
It all ended in the new administration. And the guy that was responsible, that headed up that whole organization, the AFT, he's gone. He was let go. He's no longer there, and new people are in place.
But is there anybody that you think, I guess there's no Democrat. Holder shouldn't have been fired, Clapper, Sebelius,
well, you just
Susan Rice
one.
got a promotion. None of these people, in your view, should have been fired, like the way Chris Christie stepped up and fired people?
Actually, Susan Rice didn't get the promotion that she wanted. She is in a very important position.
All right.
I guess you could call it that. But let me just say this. Mr. Clapper, I think, should go. I really do. I think
all right, we got one out of you.
Yeah.
Mr. Grimm?
Listen, I think this is hypocrisy at the highest levels. People died. Fast and Furious, as you just said. How about Benghazi? 4 Americans, including an ambassador, dead. And I don't know of anyone that actually got fired. People were moved around, but they still get paychecks from the federal government. Now, in sharp contrast, Sean, as you pointed out, what did the governor come out and do? Number one, he owned it. He said, this is my watch, I'm responsible. That's one thing this administration doesn't do, including Secretary Clinton when she was with this administration. You know, he also apologized. He also said he was wrong. You know what that is? That's not just leadership, that's good character. He came out and said, I was wrong. And now he's doing something about it. He's not putting panels together and waiting months or years. Then the very next day, within 24 hours of finding out what had happened, 2 heads rolled, period. And that's clear, decisive, bold leadership that I think this entire country is yearning for.
I want to see accountability. But stop blaming Bush, Fox News, and talk radio. All right, Congressman Garamendi, here we have the unemployment rate goes down to 6.7%, but yet we lost in the labor force 347,000 people. Now we've got 92 million Americans not in the labor force, the lowest level since 1978 when Jimmy Carter was president. Aren't these numbers deceptive? Isn't this phony accounting? Isn't this Washington speak by not counting the people that are chronically unemployed, the long-term unemployed?
Well, you'd also want to take into account that over 8 million people have found jobs added to the labor force over the last 4 years, and that happens to be one of the major statistics that are driving down the unemployment. Certainly a lot of people have left the labor force. A lot of people, particularly the baby boomers, have moved into the retirement period.
No.
And
we're talking about people that want jobs, that can't find jobs, that gave up looking for jobs. We don't count them as unemployed. Isn't that dishonest when we give out the unemployment number to the American people?
There is 2 different statistics here. The one that is the normal one, 6.7% now, and then there's the real unemployment, which is higher, which speaks to the issue that we really need to have programs that put people to work.
Well, wait a minute.
What
happened to the 5 years of Obama? He's now entering his 6th year. What happened to shovel-ready jobs and the summer of recovery and 500,000 jobs created a month? What happened to his bold plan and predictions?
Well, that was the stimulus bill, and it actually did work. However, the jobs program that he, oh yes, it did, and it did right there in New York.
It certainly did in California. It worked for.
Well, that's one example, and that certainly was a problem. But also, I drove through a brand new tunnel, the Caldegot Tunnel, linking the East Bay with San Francisco Bay, and that was a stimulus bill. It's finished now, and that's done, and there are thousands of people that went to work on that. And all across the country, the same thing. But what we really need is an ongoing jobs program, and the President suggested one. The Congress has refused to enact virtually any part of that.
He's got everything he wanted passed. Congressman Grimm, you get the last word.
Well, thank you. I mean, look, again, here's the bottom line. These policies are failing. And there is one program that works. It's called the free market. Let's get the federal government, all its regulations out of the way, and let's let the private sector put people to work. Because Washingtonians and this administration obviously can't do it. It's the private sector that creates jobs, and the liberals just can't get that through their heads, that their policy have failed since Carter. And by the way, we're at the lowest levels in 35 years. This is a disgrace, and it's patently obvious now that these policies are failing. Let's get the private sector.
I don't like that these numbers are phony and deceptive. These
well,
numbers are not accurate.
Sean, over 8 million people in the private sector have found jobs in the last 4.
We have the lowest labor participation rate, sir, in 35 years.
Right.
Long-term, chronically unemployed are not included in that 6.7 rate.
I'm not arguing that point. What I am saying is that the facts are that over 8 million people have been added to the job force in the private sector, and the government sector is down by over 9,000.
Guys, thank you. Coming up next, did a sitting U.S. Senator attempt to intimidate